Hey everybody, welcome to Making a Geek. I am Damien DeCarlo. I am joined with Avatal Stone. Hey Avatal.
Hey.
Hey. Ho. Hey. Ho.
No.
I'm also introducing here a brand new co-host to this.
Woo!
There is just no preparing this guy. He's awesome. James Creviston, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having
Hey,
me.
James.
How's it going, Avatar? Good to be here with you guys.
Absolutely beaten. Dude, I am so happy to be with you. We've been through already so much in the last couple of weeks of what we've done, but let's get started with like a little bit of what the topic of the shows always are about, which is geeking out of something on something. In this case, I'd like to geek out with you and as well as Avatar as to what it is that you like, who you are, and tell us a little bit about how you're gonna mix into this whole thing with us.
Sure. I am mostly a stand-up comedian and comedy writer. That's my where my money comes from. That's how I make those ducats. But I am a big nerd, mainly in the comic book realm, in movies, and I also like this little game that's kind of popular out there called Magic the Gathering. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of that.
Oh, we've
That's
heard of
that's
it.
I
one
It's
I
game.
may
typical
have
for
heard of
nerds.
it in the past.
Yeah, it is. It's a very nerdy thing. Actually, if you could see my desk, it's like where my other work is, and then it's magic cards like stacked up like everywhere and stuff. So, and then I have a pretty extensive comic book collection. So, mostly grew up on Image Comics and Marvel Comics, a little bit of DC. So I am familiar. I'm also familiar with like Valiant and some of the other Malibu comics, which no longer exists anymore, but was around back in the day. So that's what I do, and I absolutely love the fact that there is you guys get to talk about pop culture and all that kind of stuff.
James, are you more of a Marvel guy or a DC guy?
When it comes to movies, Marvel,
Oh my God, no doubt.
yeah, the MCU rules no matter what.
Yeah.
Probably with comics, I'm 50-50 because there's a lot of stuff that I like from DC, like Batman and the Lanterns, not just
Green
Green Lantern,
Lantern.
yeah, but like all the lanterns. I love that there are so many
Yeah.
of
I
them
was like
and different
Darkest
kinds.
Night was my go-to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And then Batman's really been stepping up their game. They did the White Knight series, which was amazing. I've never been a Superman fan. I always feel like that's the most overpowered. It's like, what does Superman need to do to save the world this time? Oh, now he can
Can
breathe
I?
ice. Now he can do this. Go ahead. No, come on.
Can
Like,
Damien, you
Yeah.
found someone that agrees with me. You are the first person that, without prompting from me, has said that he doesn't like Superman. I can't stand Superman except for one iteration. There's
Wait a
a
minute, wait a minute,
single
wait a minute.
iteration.
Let's get something
Christopher
straight here.
Reeves.
Let's get something
No,
straight.
Oh, okay.
Look at
Red
where
Sun.
look Avatar, look where I'm at right
Oh,
now.
Red Sun.
Do I look
Yes, I
like
will
I
give you
like
that.
Superman?
Red Sun is the only iteration of any Superman comic that I found to be passable, and that one was actually fantastic.
Yo, no, that's actually a
Yeah.
great one. I'm 100% with you on that one.
Yeah, but
That's
apart
good.
from that, Superman's like, oh, wow, the yellow sun gives you power. Great. So you can beat us all just because of the sun?
Yeah.
So get a tan.
Yeah. Well,
I
what I
not a
love,
fan.
why I love Batman, and also this is probably why I'm also like a big Punisher fan for the MCU or for Marvel, is that they're just men
Yeah.
who try to outthink and beat everybody, right? Like I just saw a panel the other day someone posted of a new issue of, I think it's like Justice League or something, and Cyborg is like, I'm infected with a virus. How'd that happen? I just updated stuff. And then he like goes back through his code and he's like, to Batman, he's like, you put a virus in me the day you met me. Like, what the heck is wrong with you? And everyone's mad at Batman. It's like, no, Batman needs to be able to defeat anyone at any time. So he's 1,000 steps ahead of every single one of you. And there is a comic where Batman tells the Justice League that he has a way to defeat every single one of them. Like, and they're all mad at him. Like, why would you do that? Like, well, Superman's been taken over by people before. You've all had mind things happen to you. Like, why would I not be prepared? So I don't know.
Yeah. Batman to me, and I know Damien will agree because you want to show everyone your arm?
Oh, you mean this thing? For those that aren't seeing the YouTube, I have what is a very
Nice.
beautiful
He-
Batman tattoo on my
Bat
arm.
signal, Batman
Yeah.
tattoo. He got it for his birthday. Well
Sure
done.
did. Sure did.
I just love that Batman. I know you can make the argument like, oh, he's just a rich guy. He can just buy all his power, whatever. But he's self-made as well. He
Right.
took what he had and he went, I'm going to use this to help people. And I'm not just going to donate all my money to everyone because that's what everyone else does. That's like, people think Elon Musk is an okay dude, but he's not.
That is a thing. You're
Anyway,
right.
and he creates a way for him to genuinely from the ground help people. And that's, I mean, you talked about this in your psychology episode,
Right.
that I was not a part of. What was I doing that day?
Something better probably than talking to us geeks.
I don't know. That was a great episode.
Yeah, I mean the thing with Batman, as well as Punisher, like you brought up, James, are self-sufficient people that there's a certain madness that drives them to not require any superpowers. They do what they do out of just, I don't know,
At a
if they,
strictly human level.
on a human level, but it's almost like the nth degree in the heat of passion, so to speak. You know, it's just like they're ready to just do what they have to, like almost like that story that you'll hear of someone rescuing their infant daughter that's about to get run over by a car, and the mom can magically lift the car for a second. It's like that inertia and that like passion for, doing something that drives them. And it's kind of an exaggerated way of seeing it, but I just meant to say that these people can have a different ability that other heroes don't, and especially Batman being extremely about his wits and his basically just as an intellect. Superman, I mean, being an alien, okay,
Nope.
I get that. I get that he's an alien, but
Great.
there's no humanity in him. Really, not really.
You know what?
Right.
So is Jon Jones, and he is infinitely better than any Superman.
Yeah, well, he's a lot smarter,
A lot smarter, and he's green.
and he's
Well,
green, which
And,
helps.
Avatar, you mentioned like being a billionaire philanthropist type thing. Like the MCU or the Marvel has that with Iron Man, and he's not the same as Batman. He goes the complete opposite way of where everything is about him, and he only uses his money to enrich himself or to be, cocky and brash and
But
think
then
that
he
he's
has
better than
that
all.
alter ego where he helps people.
He does sometimes, but it's usually out of his own self.
That's
Selfish
why
need.
Robert Downey Jr. was such a good
Oh no, he's
choice.
perfect. He's perfect. Exactly. Well, I mean, Robert Downey Jr. was an alcoholic. He did fall into a lot of the same traps as Tony Stark. Like all the things that happened to Tony Stark, with the exception of becoming Iron Man, actually happened.
and being an actual like 200 something IQ genius.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot there. I really think that comic book, that when heroes work well in comic books or in stories, it's when they're relatable. When they're not relatable, then you lose people. And I get that there are people that are big giant Superman fans, and it's like,
Oh,
well,
I know a few.
yeah, but it's like, yeah, that's great. You follow the guy who could beat up everyone.
Yeah.
What's the point now? Like, you never have to see him struggle. What's Superman's struggle? Someone has a piece of kryptonite, so he's a little weak now. Okay, great. Like, big whoop-de-doo.
I will say there's one more iteration of Superman that I actually did like. Not because it was great Superman wise, it was just a fun like show to watch, but like Smallville.
But they didn't make him Superman until like the last
Exactly.
season. Yeah.
And I think that, and the Smallville show, which funny enough, I just met John Glover over at
Yeah, it's
Comic-Con,
pretty
but
cool.
that was pretty cool. We'll get into that in a bit, but
That's really
but
cool.
going into like what Smallville did, that created this whole plateau of now, okay, so they're trying to humanize Superman, but not really
Yeah.
Superman. It's Clark Kent.
Clark
So
Kent. And I
in
liked
this
the way
case-
they did it because it was very much in the role of like the 90s teen drama where
Exactly.
everyone was like, because
Yeah.
it was that time, but it was also like it was fun to watch. They brought in the different types of kryptonite, and it was fun. It wasn't profound in any way, but it was definitely a fun show to watch.
Did
It was
you ever
interesting,
watch? I think it's called Krypton. It was the other one that they made a couple of years ago.
No, I remember hearing about that.
I
never
heard
saw
It was
about
okay.
it. I never saw it.
It was okay. But again, everybody can fly and is like super powerful and whatever. And you're like, they try to humanize them, but it's like hard when
It was
everyone
on Krypton.
Yeah. It was like
Flaw.
the beginning of starting that the story of then Krypton going to war and breaking apart, and then you get to the Superman thing.
Okay, but flaw.
Okay, let's all right,
Because Kryptonians are not all powerful on Krypton because they don't have a yellow sun. So if they are on Krypton with all those powers, flaw.
yeah.
They never really showed that, except in Man of Steel, them on Krypton. They didn't seem to have these powers. They were normal.
They should
They're-
not have any
Well, they
powers.
were
They
like-
shouldn't
on
have
Krypton.
any
They're
power there.
scientists.
They did have
Right.
power. Yeah, they were scientists, but they did have powers and stuff.
They
I
shouldn't.
don't
They
think
don't have a
could- I don't
yellow
think they could
sun.
fly and shoot lasers out of their eyes or anything, but they were like strong and what like they weren't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the reason that kryptonite works on Superman is because it turns him back into basically
Right.
human. And he's not used to being human. He's used to being strong. So it seems like he's
Or
extra
or
weak.
Krypton's
when really
version
he's
of
just down
human.
to our level.
Right.
Krypton's version of human. So therefore, it makes him.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it would be the same thing, but I guess
It would
just
be the same
Kryptonian.
because they should not have any powers on Krypton. That's the point. Only the yellow sun gives them their powers.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I might have to go.
It's
rewatch
interesting.
Already
Yeah,
hate this
maybe
show.
that's why the show failed. Maybe it
Yeah.
just didn't hold up, and I don't know. I'm not the biggest Superman fan, but as we've already established,
it.
so
I mean,
So
same,
James-
but at least I know the origin story.
James, what? Tell me about. Let's go back to what you were saying about your comedy. So I want to know a little bit about you. We're kind of finding out what you geek out about, but what about you in regards to this? I know you have a podcast that you do, or you did, or
Yeah,
in
we
the
do.
process of, and then comedy. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I have my main podcast, which is at 258 episodes. We've been doing it for a long time. We do one every week, called the Queen Comedy Podcast, where we talk about comedy, we interview comedians, we interview people in the comedy business, and we mainly from the point of view of Queen comedy because it's a comedy that's not really talked about as much, but is actually very popular, especially for corporate events or private gigs or dry bar comedy, which is huge right now. That's like everywhere. But Queen comedy is like a niche comedy that people say, oh, well, Queen comedians aren't as good because XYZ. And we want to expel that and say that's not true just because we don't use language or whatever.
I mean,
doesn't
look at Brian Regan.
Right, exactly right. Brian Regan's the one I always bring up. Is like that guy's amazing. He does all of those things without any of that, and he's very smart. It's one of those things. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't poo-poo on anybody for any kind of comedy, right? I love George Carlin. I like Louis C.K. minus the stuff, his comedy,
There you go.
his comedy stuff.
His comedy is good. You
right.
can't contest that. He's
Yeah.
just a
Yeah,
I can't say it person.
terrible person. Yes, I 100% agree with that.
Here's a perfect
But, like-
example. So with our show, it's the same thing. I would say just going off right now, Avatar holding back on certain words, and that's a good thing.
I have to stop myself because I literally curse more than I speak.
No, and I get that. And to be honest, I'm not exactly the model citizen when it comes to that either. But like in this show and my prior podcast,
PG-13.
Retro Game Night, it was a very it was an interesting audience to gain. It was a lot of not just young ones, but it was those that appreciated that I could play, like you said, James, I could play this anywhere and it's not going to be an issue whether there's just something blurted out or like, oh, that might be kind of not suitable for work situation or whatever. And it's helped very much to be different, whether it be Retro Game Night podcast I was in or here Making a Geek. So I appreciate that. I can see where you're coming from on that, James.
Yeah, and but there's also a stigma of like clean comedians. They're not funny because they have to talk about church stuff or they have to do this or that, or they can't. They're not funny because they're not using these words or whatever. And like, okay, well, I want to break that stigma because that happens a lot. Or when people ask what type of comedy I do, and I tell them clean comedy, like, oh, you're probably not that funny. It's like, okay, whatever you've heard, I don't know what kind of comedy you're listening to, but
I mean, again, Brian Regan is the perfect example
agree.
because he is one of the funniest men I have ever heard in my life, and he never cursed once.
right. And one of the greatest
He
comedians,
never mentioned anything about sex or bathroom etiquette
right?
or any of that.
Well, and one of the greatest comedians of all time, right? Who everyone says is the greatest, is Jerry Seinfeld, and he also is clean.
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
fantastic. Now, whether you like his stuff or not, right? But he is actually, his jokes are probably the most well-crafted and perfectly crafted jokes.
They're well crafted, but I have to say, I love Seinfeld, the show. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. I can
Right.
live without his comedy.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see him every year. I see
I
him
don't
every
hate the
year.
guy. I really don't. But I'll be honest, I don't find him funny. It's weird. I think both of you already kind of get the type of comedy I find funny. I don't know what it is about Jerry Seinfeld, and I know he's had a huge impact on
He's
pop culture.
funny. He's
He can
just
be funny in
not.
his own way. I guess I don't laugh
It's
as hard.
it goes. It's very simple. Seinfeld works because George Costanza, Elaine, Kramer, Uncle Leo, Seinfeld.
At least he's on there.
Yeah.
Just a little bit
At the
down
bottom.
here.
So
But,
so
yeah,
James,
so-
so you going into clean comedy, you doing your podcast. What I have to ask, what gets you into comedy? What I know it's a very cliche question, but tell us from just your point of view, your world of James, what makes you want to get into comedy?
I was a small kid. I got picked on a lot. I used humor to defend myself, since physically fighting back is obviously wasn't in my wheelhouse at the time.
At
And
the
then
time.
yeah, no, I am now much larger, and I did MMA for a while, and so I can definitely defend myself now. But back then it wasn't possible. But it also made me friends, right? Where maybe fighting back would have made an enemy or made somebody angrier at me. Making people laugh, they're less likely to be mean to you afterwards. So I use that to do those things. And my grandma always told me too, growing up, like if you ever have something bad happen, find the funny in it. If you could find the funny in it, the humor in it, you can turn it around and find it's a silver lining type thing. So
Smart lady.
yeah, she's the wisest woman, greatest woman ever, besides my wife. But I did that, and all through my life, I've been that silly, funny guy, and that was my way to make friends with people. Like I had to move a lot. I just had kind of a weird life. Um, but especially when I went into the Navy, I was the funny guy within my group and made people laugh and came up with weird stuff. Like we decided one time, I don't know how this happened. On our ship, somehow we started watching wrestling. So then we decided we wanted to all wrestle. So we bought one of those fake WWE belts, right? And then whoever had the belts could be attacked at any time. You have to fight for the belt. And this is like an idea we came up with. Now, these are 18 to 21-year-old boys that have nothing better to do than wrestle and beat each other up. But it would spill out, like, it spilled out into a mall one time, a park, like just anywhere. And I always found the funny because I would then take on whatever weird wrestling character I wanted to take on at the time and be wild and stuff, and it just gave a reason to do it. And then I believe Jackass was also popular around the same time, so we would do stupid stuff like that. And it just is one of those ways where anytime somebody had something bad happen, I'd find a way to, like, let's find the humor and make something fun out of this and make everyone laugh. And the older I got, I was always that person, even at work or whatever I was doing. And one day in my 30s, my wife was like, "You're getting older. Like, what things have you not done in your life that you want to do?" I was like, "I've always wanted to try stand up." She's like, "Okay." So she signed me up for a stand up class. I took the class and I learned joke structure. I learned like how to get on stage and whatever, but I didn't really like the process, and I didn't like the way it was being taught to me. So I didn't really enjoy it, but I took those and I just started studying more and more and more stuff and writing my own jokes, and then just getting more stage time and doing more things and being on bigger shows, and then eventually getting paid for stuff, and then meeting people, and it just kind of grew from there. And my co-host, who now just had a baby, so he's not on the Clean Comedy podcast right now, he and I just became friends, and literally we're just like, let's just ask as many comedians as we possibly can their advice so that we can get better faster. So it was like, what's the cheat codes? How can I get the cheat codes for comedy? And that's how it came about. And so I've been doing it ever since. I've been paid a bunch of times to not only perform but to write. The first money I ever made in comedy was writing for another big time comedian. They hired me via, I used to have Twitter. I don't have any social media anymore, but I used to have Twitter, and I would write jokes and write funny stuff on there. And they reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you be willing to write some jokes for me?" And I was, "Well, I'll pay you X amount of money? And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem.
Why
So
not?
I did that for about a year. I wrote jokes for them, and I would send them jokes every single week, and they would pay me, and it was awesome. And then they had a TV show that was coming out, and I was like, great, I'm gonna get a spot. And then the TV show went away, and so did not get my spot. So I was a little upset about that. But other than that, I've had ups and downs, and things happen, and it's just roll with the punches. But that's what
Yeah.
comedy is. You have to roll with the punches.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
With
Yeah.
the punchlines.
With the punchlines. Ooh, I like that.
I want to flip this a little bit because I am dying to know. This past Saturday, I had made plans to go to Universal Studios Grinchmas with my best friend and my best friend's brother, who's also my best friend. It was his birthday. So
Nice.
I did that, but I missed something that I would have liked to really go to as well. You guys went to LA Comic Con.
You did.
So I
did.
really want to hear about that.
Well,
Tell me
James,
everything.
I'll let you take the floor on this one because I've been to many cons in my life, and I want to hear a little bit from your point of view of your experience with LA Comic Con.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so it was my first Comic Con ever. I've never been to Comic Con before. I've only read it via Wizard magazine or stuff on the internet and stuff like that. Do you guys remember Wizard magazine? Anybody remember that?
Man, I remember Wizard magazine. As soon as you said that, that took me back.
That's how old I
Forever
am.
ago.
I
Okay.
don't.
Okay.
But
You
it's
were busy
because I'm,
being
like,
born,
12.
Avatar.
I'm 12.
Well,
I
it
don't
was
remember anything.
it was the original nerd magazine because it covered comic books, and they would do things like, if we could make X-Men movie, who would we have play?
Yeah, I remember the
these characters?
Dreamcasting. I remember the
Yeah,
Dreamcast.
always. They would
Oh
do
my
it all
god,
the
that was
time.
Why
great.
was I not privy to this? This
Yeah.
sounds awesome.
It was a
Wizard
fun
was the best.
magazine.
I
I
don't
do
even know if
also
it
have to
exists anymore.
mention really fast, just because you mentioned Wizards, is I never realized it before, but it's amazing how much the Doctor Strange background behind you actually looks like the Harry Potter owlery.
Oh yeah, it does.
I
did not
was looking
think about
behind
that.
you. I was like, there should be owls there.
Avatar's ADD, ladies and gentlemen.
That's okay.
Yes.
Back to you, James.
No. So it was my first Comic Con. I'd never been to any. So Damien invited me to come. I went, and it was great. It was Nerdtopia. People dressed up as a bunch of stuff. I saw more male nipples than I've ever seen in my entire life.
Sounds about
Seen
right.
the nipples.
And
Oh,
I
man.
was in the Navy, and we had communal showers, and still more nipples. Right? It was.
Did you see any male slave Leias? Because I saw that a couple times, and
No, there were none this year that I saw.
I didn't see
Ugh.
any of those. I saw a lot of I saw a couple of I saw a male female Deadpool. That
Oh,
makes
yeah.
sense.
Remember that?
I saw what else I see? I saw male female Harley Quinn.
Okay.
Stuff like that. And I was like, okay, cool. But I saw a lot of guys with their shirts off that I would be embarrassed if that was my body and I took my shirt off. Good for them. But for me, I'm like, no, I'm not taking my shirt off for anything. Although I will have to say that I did see probably the best Hawkman costume I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
It was great. He did a great job. It was amazing.
That's
But
not a reference you hear a lot either.
Right. Yeah. And he
That's
was the only
rad.
one I saw, by the way. So I didn't see another one, but good for him. It was really cool. We saw some of the for me, the costumes that people had on were amazing.
Yeah.
There was a lot, every kind of fandom was represented there. Like, I didn't feel like anybody was left out and nobody was judged for what they liked. And it was great. And then we went to a panel where my childhood came alive again because Jason David Frank came to the panel, and he, for everyone who doesn't know, the Green Ranger and the White Ranger.
Yeah, Green Ranger. Yeah.
And then became the White Ranger. Tommy, everybody loved Tommy back in the day.
I remember Tommy.
Yeah, he was the man. Every kid I knew, when you played Power Rangers, wanted to be the Green Ranger every single time.
Yep.
Because he was so cool
He
and
was
he
cool.
was the least racist.
The least racist.
I don't even know if I caught any racism.
I need to
back
wait.
then.
I got to figure this out. Okay,
Not
go ahead.
from them, based on their outfits. The Yellow Ranger was an
Oh,
Asian.
yeah, that was a thing. I didn't even
The
think
Black
about
Ranger
that.
was a black guy. It was
Yeah.
stereotyped a lot.
Oh,
And
The
don't get me
Red
wrong,
Red
I
Ranger
love
was
Power
Hispanic. I just realized
Rangers.
that.
No,
Wow,
the Red
that's
Ranger
really weird.
was Native American. That's
Oh,
weird.
he's Native
He was-
American. Oh. Wow,
Yeah,
weird.
it was-
I
it
never
was
even
the Pink
realized
Ranger, but
that.
It was a girl that looked a little like me.
Yeah, like a little girly and whatever.
Yeah.
Wow. I
Kimberly, it
never
was
even
Kimberly.
saw it under the. I think it was also.
Grayson.
I think we live in a world now where we're just very racial. There's a lot of
Sensitive.
racial awareness. I mean,
Yeah.
so therefore we see those things now, whereas back then we just didn't even think of it back then, even though
Yeah.
racism's always been around. But it's just interesting that
Yeah,
you
I
caught that.
never thought about that. That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you for bringing that up. Seriously, it never occurred to me because I guess I just watched like, oh, they're all cool. Although I always liked the Black Ranger the best, anyways. I thought it was
Yeah,
like the best
same.
one. So I was like, all right.
Same.
And it says
I
something
wanted
as
to
a
like
kid,
Billy
too.
because I liked it.
I was just gonna say it
What?
says
Yeah.
something as a kid too, seeing all that, and we didn't even think of those things. Just the way that children are, they're not built by nature
Well,
racist.
children don't see color. It's their parents
They don't see
that teach
color,
them.
right.
It's just
They
a matter
teach
of,
instill that
the
in them.
writers definitely were a little like maybe switch it up and don't make it seem like
Yeah.
you're stereotyping people.
I mean, the way it even sounds, I almost fear that it was intentional. That's just horrible. It's
Oh,
it's
no,
awful.
it was intentional.
That's
Yeah,
it's
it's
really
absolutely
strange to me
intentional.
that could be. Yeah. Anyway, James, as you were saying.
Anyway, Comic-Con.
Yeah, Comic-Con, but it was every part of it was amazing, and they had a huge main stage with people on there. So they had the cast of like Arrow was there when we walked by. I saw
Is
people
Arrow
that
still going?
Apparently, it is.
I think so.
Wow.
I didn't know it was. And then as I was leaving because I had to go to another event, Zachary Levi Shazam was taking the stage, and it was awesome. I know, right?
Love of my life, Zachary Levi.
He's the man.
But
No.
because of Chuck.
Oh, because of Chuck. What
Oh,
about
absolutely.
Marvelous Miss Maisel? Do you watch that?
Absolutely phenomenal, but I watched Chuck as it came out, and I think the nerdiest love of my life is Zachary Levi. He's just
that is a guy, right? Like Shazam is perfect for him because
so good.
it's like a Superman character, but it's a human version of Superman, right?
And he's so silly.
Yeah, he's just silly and nutty and just fun, just like a fun.
Again,
he's almost,
the humanizing
he's playing
aspect is very
himself.
appealing.
yeah,
He was playing a buff version of himself with
Right.
power.
And then he's aware that he's that buff. He's like, I got muscles.
He was hot in that role. I mean, just saying.
no, he's definitely. I mean, he's definitely, and he just seems like a fun. He seems like the Ryan Reynolds of the DC universe.
He
Like,
kind of is.
yeah.
He's nerdy Ryan Reynolds.
Right.
And honestly, just as hot.
yeah, no, I'm with you 100% on that. That's
Mhm.
he's just an awesome guy. So
Because he's Jewish.
is that what it is? What's Ryan Reynolds' excuse? He's Canadian. Is that what we're going off
He's
of?
Canadian. We got a Canadian, sweet, wonderful, very hot man, and we got a Minch.
Yeah. So it was fun. I enjoyed Comic-Con.
That's awesome.
It was, I mean, yeah, it was a great experience because I've been to like different conventions and stuff, but nothing like that. And it was really cool. The only complaint that I have about Comic-Con, or at least that Comic-Con, was everything was all the prices were severely inflated for everything. That's it.
That's
I
every
mean,
Comic-Con.
Have you been to like Disneyland?
Yeah, no, I have kids. Yeah, I have been. I know. It just felt like, hey guys, do a little fan service here. Like, let's not charge $300 for a comic book I could find online, for $200.
Yeah, it's almost like they have this advantage of a convenience, and they got you, and it's there, it's sitting there, you can have it right now. But I personally, I've always had a fun game of haggling there, and I always do
really?
every time.
Yeah, you
I
can
just never,
haggle at the cons.
I didn't
terrible
buy
haggler.
anything. I didn't buy anything this time. I mean, I'm downsizing. I'm actually moving out from where I'm at and moving in with my
Oh.
girlfriend, and I have to think of, I can't buy anything, and then so it's just I didn't do that
You
this
have to
time around,
know
but I
you have the
almost
space
always.
before you add to it.
Yeah, I almost always will buy something, but this time was no, I really am not going to. It's a conscious decision. I'm not going to take anything home.
Yeah, but
And
So I
Emily
understand
was
that.
okay with that?
I think she was all right with that. Yeah.
I think but you did go to something. You did get something, right? Am I right?
Well, that was an experience, right? Not
I think it was a
physical
signing
thing.
too, right, or something. No.
Oh, so yeah, so my girlfriend decides to surprise me with, I guess it was just something I had mentioned before that being a mild, very, very mild Batman fan. No, I have always had a fascination, of course, with Kevin Conroy. I mean, there's just always been a thing, and I know I have mutual friends that know him that are part of the cons, and I've always thought, oh, I'll get around to meeting him someday. It was, no rush to it. It was like he'll be there, and like I always admired him from afar. I'm like, oh, there's Kevin Conroy. Yeah, it's okay. He has thousands of people around him, but my girlfriend surprises me with a photo op and meeting all of a sudden, and you don't just wake up in the morning thinking like, oh, I'm gonna go to the con and I think I'm just gonna just not meet anyone famous. No, wait, you're gonna meet Kevin Conroy. Like, what? As soon as she dropped that on me, it was a really great surprise, and yeah, that was a lot of fun. Him and John Glover. It was very quick. It wasn't a very big meeting. It was just they had so many people, of course, to get to, but it was just such an honor to meet them and have a photo taken and everything. So it was really cool.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I
He was
took
buying
home.
her a shirt. He was buying her a shirt. Meanwhile, she was on her phone, like setting this up, like getting the thing, and like being like, "Shh, don't say anything."
That's
Right.
Emily. She's
Yeah.
so sweet.
That is
awesome.
definitely her style. So it was fun because I hadn't gone with her before, and she had never been, and so same with James, and it was a nice. It's fun. It's like it's kind of taking someone to something. I guess it could be anything you love so much, but to take someone for the very first time, I guess maybe James with children would understand what it's like to take your kids for the first time to Disneyland when you've grown up going. You get to live through them vicariously for a bit, and I kind of got that with you and Emily, my girlfriend, and how that was like cool to take you guys and see your faces at everything I've seen 1,000 times over.
Yeah.
Had
no.
Emily never been either?
She had never been either before to either cons or anything like that, and so I could see almost in her face. I don't know about you, James, but there was a sense of like maybe a slight overwhelmingness. Like, it was just like so much. And I
It's
just
a
kind
lot of sensory things happening.
I said
Yeah,
that to her,
it's
like
very-
sensory overload. Get ready, but it's
Yeah.
a good precursor because it is nothing compared to what San Diego Comic Con is. Nothing.
Oh, right.
That is. I've gone to so many cons and I still feel that to this day when I go there. It's just like, whew, I take a deep breath.
Usually in July.
When is
It's
the next?
it's usually in the
July?
summertime. Yeah, so that should
Is
be
that
around.
happening this year?
It is. If this one happened, that tells me most likely San Diego will happen. But
We're going, right?
But then we have the variant. Yeah. Oh, we're gonna go either way. We'll go in full hazmat suit.
I mean, that'll be a great costume.
Yeah, that would be a great costume. But anyway, yeah, I had fun, and I'm glad that you went, James. And I really, I think when we had our initial conversations about you joining in on the podcast and being a new co-host, I think that we had these discussions of what was geeky, what was nerdy, and then the opportunity to take you to Comic-Con was probably the best way to kind of, I mean, you already know it, but break you in, I guess, to what we do on the show. So that was a really cool treat to have you there.
Yeah, and I actually didn't realize that like wrestling was a big part of that.
Oh, yeah.
Either. So like
That's cosplay.
so I knew people there that were involved in the wrestling business too. So it was like I saw friends and I was like, oh hey, I
Yeah,
knew
you knew
and I
people
knew-
there.
I did actually do. I was like, what is happening? And people were like, hey, this is crazy. So it's good when your stuff crosses over, like especially like one of my friends is a comedian but also likes wrestling and that stuff, and you happen to be doing I think a panel there, so you had to work on stuff. And another person I knew was promoting for New Japan Pro Wrestling, which was cool. And I was like, all right, well, this is amazing. Like, there's everything that I love in this area. Now it was sensory overload. It was more like, where do I start? Like, you ever know that thing? Like, if you go to a buffet and you're like, where do I start? Like, what thing do I start with? Because I want to eat that, but I also want to eat that, and I also want to eat that. And it's like, yeah, it was that.
I can relate to that feeling. I know how you feel, but it was
With
a good
the food
start.
specifically, because
Well, it was a good start, and I'm really happy you're on the show with us. Avatar, what do you think of James? Does he qualify for our show? What is your take of him?
more than me.
She
Want me to be
is
honest? Right?
completely right about that.
Well, look at this guy though. Look at this.
And Tuco, her dog, is on the video call
I
now.
am a little upset. Well, he threw up this morning, so I'm trying to
Aw.
give him extra love.
Oh,
Yeah, you have to.
Little
Tuco.
baby.
well, we're really, really happy you're on the show with us, James. I think that we're gonna have an awesome year
Same.
coming up next year, 2022.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great.
Now,
And
wait, before you end this, because I know you're on
Yeah.
track to end this right now. I
You
thought of
know
the
me by
perfect
now where I
costume
transition.
for San Diego Comic-Con. Yeah. Before we end,
Okay.
San Diego Comic-Con, since you mentioned hazmat suits, I thought of a great costume. Now stay with me because it gets good. Have you seen Monsters Inc?
Yes.
oh my God, those
Those
suits.
hazmat suits. And we all have to have socks.
Oh, that'd be great.
I like it.
Yeah? Who's
Everybody
with
would
me?
know. Everybody would know what it is too. I love it.
Who's with me?
No, I'm in. I like that.
Yes, okay.
Don't we have to have extra arms though? Don't they have 4 arms?
That's easy to you just add arms.
We'll
Okay.
glue some sticks to our sides.
I
And we'll just turn around and they'll kind of flop.
Don't touch all our arms, huh?
don't know. We saw the most amazing Doctor Octopus costume.
People
while we
that
were there.
actually had the animatronics, right? Where
They had
just,
like the things, and it was
moving.
like
Yeah,
I was like, oh my
beautiful.
gosh! And then actually the most beautiful Mysterio, like I don't know, the globe portion of his head, amazing.
But,
I
like,
know it was
with the
3D
cloud?
printed. No, it was like
3D printed, but it was
it was
awesome.
3D printed, but it like you could tell there was like I don't know, it just anytime he moved, it just had this weird look. It was really
Like
cool.
a shimmer?
Yeah,
Cool.
it was super cool, but it had
I
like
don't know
it
why you
wasn't.
didn't take pictures for me.
There's
I
just
don't
too
know
much
why I
to
didn't.
see.
There was
just too
so
to
much.
see.
Yeah.
All
It
right.
went so quickly too, and some of these the awesome cosplays you would see at the distance, they'd be like, "Oh, I'm not gonna walk over there."
It's because you've been before.
Yeah, it's true. Anyway, so this is gonna be fun. I can't wait for the next year. I don't know if there is any sort of. Well, we do have a lineup, which I haven't told you guys, but there will be a lineup of some guests coming up, which will be fun.
Good to know.
I like to leave you guys in the dark until the last minute.
So we can't prepare anything as usual. Do
Yeah.
you know how many times, James, I've not been able to prepare questions because I find out like 2 days in advance. I'm like, well, all right.
Yeah,
I'll try to
let
do
us know
better.
the
That's
guest.
my
I
New
wanna
Year's
ask good-
resolution.
I want to ask good questions.
Yeah. Well, no, we'll prepare better for this time for sure.
It's your New
yeah,
Year's resolution.
the New Year's resolution is to keep you more in the light, not the
I
dark.
appreciate that. Mine is to stay in the light.
Stay in the light and never see a movie like Eternals again. Anyway,
What was that movie that you mentioned? What
yeah, I
was
don't know. It was just some other movie.
I've
thought
never
of.
heard of that
Yeah,
or
I never
seen
heard of
it
it, yeah.
or anything. It sounds awful.
James, I know you're not a social media guy, but I guess I'll collectively say for all of us, if anyone wants to find us, just find us on makingageek.com and you'll find our social media stuff there, our videos, our audio. We really appreciate all the hits that we've gotten on this show. I never really give props to our listeners. Probably should, but do thank you to the fans that have been watching us and listening to us, and we definitely can't wait for the next year to be at a con and meet some of you, and we really look forward to that. So anyway, so James, thanks a lot for being on the show. Avatar, thanks for bringing your dog on the show and dancing with your dog on the camera.
He's trying to get us more subscribers.
He is super geek. He's a super geek
is.
dog.
He's super
Crypto the super dog.
All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap up, but remember, what do I say, Avatar, every time I close out?
Keep calm and geek out.
And geek out. Good night, everybody.